roots of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou Lekea.
Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book Spiritual Struggle, the third volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. Good thoughts lead to spiritual health. Yeroda, what are the characteristics of a weak thought? What do you mean? This is the first time I have heard of such a thing. Yeroda, you had said that for one to have a sinister thought, to misunderstand someone's behavior, and I called that a weak thought. I remember the person who wanted to stay with you and be a novice under your guidance, and you told him, I cannot keep you because you have weak thoughts. No, I didn't say it that way. I told him, I can't take you as a novice because you do not have spiritual health. And he asked me, what do you mean by spiritual health? You do not have good thoughts, I told him. As a man I may have my faults, and as a monk all these years I may also have some virtues. If you do not have good thoughts, you will be harmed by both my faults and my virtues. One may say of a small child that it has weak thoughts because it is still immature, but you can't say that about a grown-up. Are all grown-ups Yeroda mature? Some, because of their mind, their way of thinking, do not mature. And I do not mean someone who is mentally challenged and does not understand. But when someone does not behave and act simply, his thoughts turn to evil things, and he interprets everything the wrong way. Such a person does not have spiritual health, and is not helped even by the good. He is tormented even by the good. Yeroda, if we notice that something is out of order in the monastery, should we try to find out who is responsible? First see if you're responsible. That is the best thing to do. But Yeroda, what if others provide occasion for doubt? How many occasions have you provided? If you think of this, you will realize that you are making a mistake to deal with such situations in this way. What about when we say, this is clearly something that Sister so-and-so has done. Is this also a sinister thought? Are you sure that it was done by that sister? No, but only because she has done something similar on other occasions. Again, it is a sinister and inappropriate thought, since you cannot be sure who did it. And even if it were done by that sister, no one can know how and why she did it. Yeroda, what if I see that a certain sister has a particular passion? Are you the abbess? The abbess bears responsibility for this. It is her duty to examine the passions of all the sisters, but why should you be examining the passions of the other sister? Unfortunately, you haven't yet learned to work spiritually on yourselves. If you want to do spiritual work on yourselves, do not examine what others are doing around you. Instead, have good thoughts about both the good and the bad you see in others. Regardless of the reason why someone does something, you must put a good thought in your mind. A good thought contains love. It disarms the other person and makes him behave properly. Do you remember the incident with those nuns who took a thief to be an Abba? When it was revealed that he was a thief, they continued to think that he was a fool for Jesus Christ and only pretending to be a thief, and revered him all the more. In the end, they saved both him and his companions. Among the stories about monks in the early years, the following incident is told. A well-known robber who intended to rob a well-fortified monastery dressed up and pretended to be a monk, and asked for lodging in the monastery. The abbess and all the nuns received him with much respect as a great Abba. All the nuns gathered to receive his blessing. They washed his feet and kept the water as a blessing. A paralyzed nun, who in great faith was washed with that water, was healed, and also walked up to receive his blessing, to the amazement of all. The robber, seeing the miracle, was transformed inside, repented, threw away the sword hidden under his cassock, and in time he and his companions became monks and lived with faithfulness the monastic life. Yeroda, when a sister tells me a lie, what if she was forced because of you to say a lie, or if she forgot and if what she told you was not a lie? For example, the nun responsible for hospitality, knowing there is salad in the kitchen, asks for a salad from the cook, who replies, "I don't have any." If the nun responsible for hospitality does not have good thoughts, she will think, "She's lying." But if she has good thoughts, she will say, "The poor nun, she is so busy with her work, she has forgotten that there is still some salad left in the kitchen." Or she may think, "Perhaps she is saving the salad for someone else." You do not have spiritual health, and this is why you think like that. If you had spiritual health, you would see even the impure as pure. Just as you recognize the value of fruit, you would also recognize the value of manure, because manure helps the fruit to grow. Whoever has good thoughts also has spiritual health, and what is evil can be changed into good. I remember during the German occupation, the physically strong children ate with a hearty appetite a piece of bobota, bread made with corn, and were very healthy. By contrast, some wealthy children who ate bread and butter tended to be sickly because they did not have a strong constitution. Something similar happens in spiritual life. Someone who has good thoughts, even if struck unjustly, will say, "God has permitted this in order to redeem my old faults. Glory be to God." On the other hand, someone who does not have good thoughts will imagine you are trying to hurt him, even when you try to caress him. Take an example from someone who is drunk. If he is bad, he will destroy everything in his drunken stupor. If he is good, he will be either weeping or forgiving everyone, both the dead and the living. One drunken man used to say, "I offer a bucketful of gold sovereigns to whoever envies me." Whoever has good thoughts sees good in everything. Some people tell me that they are scandalized because they see many things wrong in the church. I tell them that if you ask a fly, "Are there any flowers in this area?" it will say, "I don't know about flowers, but over there in that heap of rubbish you can find all the filth you want." And it will go on to list all the unclean things it has been to. Now if you ask a honeybee, "Have you seen any unclean things in this area?" it will reply, "Unclean things? No, I have not seen any. The place here is full of the most fragrant flowers." And it will go on to name all the flowers of the garden or the meadow. You see, the fly only knows where the unclean things are, while the honeybee knows where the beautiful iris or the hyacinth is. As I have come to understand, some people resemble the honeybee, and some resemble the fly. Those who resemble the fly seek to find evil in every circumstance and are preoccupied with it. They see no good anywhere. But those who resemble the honeybee only see the good in everything they see. The stupid person thinks stupidly and takes everything in the wrong way, whereas the person who has good thoughts, no matter what he sees, no matter what you tell him, maintains a positive and good thought. Once a high school student came to my kalivi, a dwelling which includes 2 or 3 cells and a small chapel, all of which belongs to one of the 20 major monasteries of the Holy Mountain, and knocked on the metal knocker on the door. Even though I was reading a stack of letters at the time, I decided to go and see what he wanted. "What is it you want, my son?" I asked. "Is this the kalivi of Father Paisios?" he asked me, adding, "I want to see Father Paisios." "This is his kalivi, but he's not here. He went to buy cigarettes," I told him. "It looks like he must have gone to help someone," he responded with a good thought. "He went to buy the cigarettes for himself," I told him. "He smoked them all and was desperate for a cigarette. He left me here alone, and I don't know when he'll be back. If he takes too long, I'll just leave." The student's watery eyes gave away his emotion, and again he said with a good thought, "We torment Father Paisios." "Why do you want to see him?" I asked. "I just want to receive his blessing," he said. "What blessing do you expect to receive from him, you fool? He's deluded. I know him well. There's no grace in him. Don't waste your time waiting for him to return. He'll be grouchy. He may even be drunk because he drinks too." In spite of all this, the young man was still having good thoughts. Finally, I told him, "I will wait for him a little longer. What do you want me to tell him?" "I have a letter to give him," he said, "but I will wait so I can also receive his blessing." You see, no matter what negative things I related, he took them all with a good thought. When I told him about the need for cigarettes, his eyes began to well up with tears. Who knows, he thought, he must have gone to help someone. Other people are well educated and read a great deal, but they still don't have the good thoughts of that young student. You demolish his thought, and he immediately creates a better thought and draws an even better conclusion. I marveled at him. It was the first time I saw such a thing. Thoughts of a sanctified man and thoughts of a cunning man. Yeronda, can one who has sanctity perceive who is cunning? Yes, he can discern the cunning man, just as he can discern the sanctity of a saint. He sees evil, but at the same time, he sees the inner man and discerns that the evil is from the tempter, the devil, stemming from the outside. Seeing through the eyes of his soul, he magnifies his own faults, while diminishing the faults of others. And what's more, he sees all these faults in truth, not falsely. He may discern that some of these faults are even crimes, but he will find some justification in the good sense of the term for the cunning schemes of an evil man whom he does not despise or consider to be inferior. He may even consider the evil man as being better than him and will knowingly tolerate him for many reasons. For example, he recognizes a criminal's evil nature, but thinks that the man may have become a criminal because he did not receive help. He even thinks that he himself could have been a criminal if God had not helped him. This is how he receives much grace. On the contrary, the cunning man, while seeing the other man's sanctity, does not know the good thoughts in his heart, as even the devil himself does not know them. He who is doing refined spiritual work justifies others, but not himself. And the more he advances spiritually, the more he is freed, and the more he loves God and other people. Then he cannot understand what evil means, for he always has good thoughts about others and always thinks purely and sees everything in a spiritual and sanctified light. Such a person benefits even from the falls of others, which he utilizes as a strong brake on himself in order to attend to himself and to avoid being derailed by the same faults. On the contrary, one who has not been purified within thinks cunningly and sees everything through the dim glow of cunningness. Even good things are polluted by his cunningness. Such a person does not even benefit from the virtues of others, because he is darkened by the darkness of the man-destroying devil and interprets the virtues through his own cunning vocabulary. He is always aggrieved, and he always grieves others by his spiritual darkness. If he desires to be liberated, he must understand that he is in need of purification, both of the mind and of the heart, which will also bring spiritual clarity. Yeroda, what happens when the same person is sometimes cunning and sometimes good? In that case, a man goes through the commensurate influences and changes. Man is mutable. Cunning thoughts sometimes stem from the tempter, the devil, and at other times the man himself thinks cunningly. Often the devil creates the conditions that lead a man to evil thoughts. Once, an archimandrite came to my Kalivi for the first time, but I did not get a chance to see him. The second time he came, I could not see him because I was seriously ill, and I asked him to come some other time so we could talk. Then he had negative thoughts that I did not want to see him, that I had a grudge against him, so he went down to the monastery and complained. All of this comes from the evil one. A person's thoughts reveal his spiritual state. Yeroda, how can the same thing be interpreted differently by two people? Do all eyes see with equal clarity? For one to see clearly, he must have the eyes of the soul in a most healthy condition, for it is then that he has inner purity. Why is it, Yeroda, that one person considers an event to be a blessing, but another sees it as a misfortune? Each person interprets the event according to his own thought. Each thing can be seen from its good side or its bad side. I had heard about the following event. In a monastery situated near an inhabited area, they kept the rule of celebrating Vespers and Matins at midnight, allowing the neighbors in the surrounding homes, they were built around the monastery by the time, to attend these church services. Once a young novice monk went to the service and left his cell open, and a woman entered. When he learned of this, he was troubled and worried because he considered this to be a very bad thing. My cell has been polluted. He took alcohol, poured it on the floor, and set fire to it in order to disinfect it. He almost set the whole monastery on fire. He burned the floor of his cell, but did not burn the thought in his head. He should have burned the thought, because that was where the devil was lurking. If he had had a good thought, he would have said that the woman entered his cell out of devotion to receive a blessing, to receive grace in order to undertake the spiritual struggle at home more fervently, and in this manner he would have been spiritually transformed and would have glorified God. A person's spiritual state is indicated by the quality of his thoughts. People judge things according to their heart's spiritual content. If they do not have spiritual content, they will draw the wrong conclusions and do wrong to other people. For example, one who is doing charity work at night so as not to be seen will never think anything evil if he should see someone late at night out on the street. But if a person who spends his nights in sin sees someone out on the street late at night, he will say, "Who knows where that bad fellow is spending his nights?" because he himself has such experiences. Or if sounds from the apartment above are heard by someone who has good thoughts, he will say, "They are praying and doing prostrations." But one with bad thoughts will say, "They are dancing all night long." If a melody is heard, the one will say, "What beautiful psalmody," while the other will say, "What kind of songs are those?" Do you remember how the two thieves who were crucified with Christ addressed him? They both saw Christ on the cross, the earth quaking, and so forth. But what a difference there was in the thought of the one and the thought of the other. The one on the left blasphemed and said, "If thou be Christ, save thyself and us." Luke 23, verse 39. The other on the right said, "We indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss." Luke 23, verse 41. One was saved, but the other was lost.
For our deliverance from all tribulation, wrath, danger, and necessity, let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy.
Chapter 2. Blasphemous Thoughts. Which thoughts are blasphemous? Yeronda, I have not yet understood when a thought is blasphemous. When inappropriate images come to mind about Christ, the Panagia, the saints, some holy and sacred thing, or even about our spiritual Father and so forth, these are blasphemous thoughts. They should not even be uttered aloud. Not even to our spiritual Father? To him it is sufficient to simply say, "Blasphemous thoughts go through my mind about Christ, or about the Holy Spirit, or about the Panagia, or about the saints, or about you, my spiritual Father." All of these blasphemous thoughts and sins are the work of the devil. They are not ours. This is why it is not necessary to grieve about them. We do not need to be distressed over the devil's sins. When I was a novice monk, for a certain period of time, the devil brought to me such blasphemous thoughts even when I was in church, and I grieved over them a great deal. Whatever I had heard spoken by others when I had been a soldier, swear words, curses, and so forth, the devil would bring to my mind about the saints. My spiritual Father would say to me, "These thoughts are from the devil." The fact that a person is grieved over these impure thoughts which go through his mind about the holy and sacred things, this alone is already proof that they are not his own, but rather come from the outside. I, however, continued to be distressed by them. I would go away to the chapel of St. John the Forerunner to pray, and his icon would exude a fragrance when I reverenced it. Later, when such thoughts started coming to my mind again, I would go to the chapel and, again, fragrance would emanate from the icon. One day, during the Divine Liturgy, at the Theologian hymn, I, with the other monks, was chanting quietly the Theologian hymn of Nilios. Nilios Camarados, who lived in Constantinople around 1880, was a prolific musician who studied the theory of Byzantine music and distinguished himself as one of the famous chanters of the church. Then I saw a huge and fearful beast with a dog's head entering from the door of the Lyti, the inner narthex of monastic churches, the space between the narthex and the nave or main part of the church. The name comes from the rather brief worship service called the Lyti, which is chanted in this area of the church on great feast days during the all-night vigil, and which consists of hymns and a great litany of petitions and supplications. Flames were coming out of its mouth and its eyes. He turned and gave me 2 gestures of a curse because I was chanting, "Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, have mercy upon us." I turned to the side to see if anyone else had seen the beast, but no one had. Later, I told my spiritual father, "This and this happened to me." Then my spiritual father said to me, "There, you saw him, that's him. Now, will you stop worrying and be still?" Yeroda, can one always discern if a thought is blasphemous? If one uses the brain God has given him, then one can. For example, some people tell me, "Yeroda, how is it possible for hell to exist? We worry over a person who is in prison. How much more over one who is in hell?" But this is a blasphemy because these people present themselves as being more righteous than God. God knows what he is doing. Do you remember an incident mentioned by St. Gregory the Dialogist? Once Bishop Fortunatus expelled a demon from a possessed woman. The demon wandered around the city in the guise of a poor man, complaining about the bishop and saying, "That merciless bishop expelled me." Someone went up to him and said, "That was not right. How could the bishop do this unjust thing? Come into my home, poor man." The devil entered into that man's home and soon enough said, "I am cold. Throw some wood on the fireplace." So the man threw more wood in the fireplace and rekindled the fire. Finally, when the fire was blazing, the devil entered into his child, and the poor child jumped into the fire and was set aflame. It was then that the unfortunate man realized what the discerning bishop had expelled and what he himself had taken into his house. Bishop Fortunatus knew very well what he was doing when he expelled the demon. Where do blasphemous thoughts come from? Yeroda, could you tell us something about good indifference? Good indifference is needed in someone who is overly sensitive, and the Tagalaki, this is how the elder often referred to the devil, torments him with various thoughts. Then it is helpful to become a little insensitive in the good sense of the term, and not to analyze certain things too much. Moreover, this blessed indifference is necessary for one who, although normally indifferent to many things, is overly sensitive about one particular thing, something that the devil has developed in him in order to destroy him. In this case, it will be helpful to develop this good indifference for a period of time. It will require careful observation. He must confess his thought to his spiritual father, who will observe him carefully. Otherwise, he can gradually level everything down, go to the other extreme, and become completely indifferent. Yeroda, when I feel sad, I have blasphemous thoughts. Why is that? It's like this. When the Tagalaki sees you sad, he takes advantage of the situation and offers you a worldly candy, a sinful thought. As soon as you fall for the first time, he will lead you to greater sadness, and you won't have the strength to resist. This is why you must never remain in a state of sadness, but strive to do something spiritual that will help you to get out of this state of sorrow. Yeroda, I am troubled by some thoughts. It is from the evil one, the tempter. Be at peace and do not pay attention to them. You are sensitive. The devil is taking advantage of your sensitivity. He is making you scrutinize certain things so that your mind becomes glued to them, and you are tormented for no good reason. The devil may bring to you inappropriate thoughts about the abbess or even about me. Do not pay any attention to them. If you pay any attention to even a single blasphemous thought, it can torment you. It can break your spirit. You need a little good indifference. The evil one usually torments with blasphemous thoughts those who are very devout and very sensitive. He magnifies their fall in order to grieve them, and if he does not succeed in bringing them to desperation, even to the point where they may commit suicide, he then at least attempts to bring upon them some mental illness and to render them useless. And if he cannot do even that, it pleases him to at least bring upon them some form of depression or melancholy. I met someone who constantly spat. People told me, he is possessed by a demon. I said, this is not a habit of someone who is possessed. As I learned later, that fellow was not at fault in anything that would cause him to be possessed by a demon. He had grown up as an orphan and had a certain sensitivity, but he also had sinister thoughts and unfocused imaginings, which the devil exploited to bring him blasphemous thoughts. Therefore, when the devil instigated such thoughts, he resisted by spitting at them. Another person, seeing this behavior, assumed that he was possessed by a demon. It was a shame for the poor fellow to have this sensitivity, and for others to say to him that he was possessed. Blasphemous thoughts also often come from the devil's malice. Once in a while, especially after a vigil, when one is very tired and unable to resist, the devil will bring blasphemous thoughts, and then, in order to really confuse him and to bring him to desperation, begins to tell him, not even the devil can bring such thoughts. You cannot save yourself now. The devil even brings blasphemous thoughts about the Holy Spirit, and then says that this sin cannot be forgiven, and so on. Yeroda, can a blasphemous thought come to us through our own fault? Yes, a man himself can cause such thoughts to rise up into his consciousness. Where there is no sensitivity, blasphemous thoughts stem from pride, judging others, and so forth. For this reason, when you undertake an ascetic discipline and have blasphemous thoughts or thoughts of disbelief, you should know that your ascetic discipline, fasting, vigils, and so on, is being carried out with pride. The mind is dimmed by pride. Disbelief begins, and the person is deprived of the grace of God. Or when one is preoccupied with questions of doctrine without having the necessary qualifications and spiritual preparation, he is then beset with blasphemous thoughts. Thank you for listening. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou Lekea.